with the Siren and the Pirate jewelry for the adventure, and today I'm going to show you a new tutorial on a new style that I've been working with. I would first want to say thank you to everybody for being so patient with me. I've had to take a couple weeks off here just to get some things in order, and I'm very happy today to be able to sit down and get back to making these tutorials to be able to share with you. So again, thank you, and I hope you enjoy this one. The reason I'm doing this one, I've had a lot of requests actually from people who are wanting, when I showed my shop update, this is kind of the style that I've been into lately, this dense wire wrapping style. And a lot of people have requested a tutorial on how to do these designs. So first I want to say, like, I'm happy for your interest, and makes me very happy to feel like I've created something beautiful. But when I'm creating, sometimes, I mean, there's certain designs that I can make a tutorial on, and others that I just can't. Sometimes I'm just in that kind of flow state of creativity while I'm making, and it's a different type of mindset being in that state as opposed to thinking, how am I going to teach this to other people? So sometimes the designs are sort of sacred to me in that process. But it did get me thinking about coming up with another design that I could teach you via tutorial here, and something that maybe a beginner could start with. So I've come up with this design, and it will give you the basics on how I create these other designs. I think it's going to be a good starting piece for us today, and it's really pretty beautiful. This one hasn't been patinaed yet, but you can see some of the other work. It was actually based off of this one. I've just kind of made it a bit easier for us today and working with some smaller gauge wire. And well, anyways, this is what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and get started. So the size of wire you're going to need for today is, I'm using round wire. The frame itself, the thicker gauge in this part, is going to be 16 gauge copper wire. The bail here up at the top to wrap those wires, I am using 21 gauge half round wire. And again, really the sizes of the wire you can play with too. Today we're going to be starting with some easier to work with wire. The other wires we're working with is just 20 gauge wire. So if you're not used to using that really thick gauge wire, I suggest starting like with something easier like 20 gauge. And it's going to come out looking like this. Here's an example of a piece that I've went ahead and used 16 gauge wire for basically everything on here, just to give you an idea. This can be really hard on your hands too, so kind of build up a little tolerance here. It's totally fine to start with the thinner wire. All right, and then the other thing you're going to need is a centerpiece. So I have these natural stone beads, and I think what today, I'm going to give you the measurements that I'm working with today, but I'm more so just going to give you guidelines, because you may not have the same size stone as me, or you may want to do it a little different. So it's I'm going to do my best with measurements, but I'll do even better just giving you guidelines. All right, so this stone, let's just give it a little measurement here. So I'd say like 3.6 centimeters. It's got a little hole in the top. All right, so it's going to be just a little bit bigger than this guy. So, all right, so what we'll want to do first is create the frame for this kind of leaf diamond shape. And let's see, I'm going to cut about Some things I measure in centimeters and other things in inches. I don't know why, I just kind of toggle back and forth. Why don't we start, oh gosh, I'm gonna say 9.5 just to be safe on this one. Okay, and what I'll do from here is just start to shape it. I'm gonna bend it in half. Kind of create that. I like to use these nice flat nose pliers to kind of pinch it at the end. So I have a little bit more of a point going on. A lot of times I'll bend it to get that point and then just open it back up. So it's a little bit more of a dramatic point or bend at the end. So I spend some time making sure my frame is exactly the way I want it. Okay, so this is just kind of where I'm eyeballing it. I think it will be okay with that shape. It's going to connect on the sides and I'll still have some room to be able to thread it through and around. You'll understand what I mean in a minute there. I was really thinking out loud. All right, so now when we go to create the top, wherever the two wires crisscross, I'm going to take my pliers and just do a bend upward. Try to get this even on both sides. Ooh, pretty good. This is always the part that I'm super awkward at. I feel like I can never quite get it symmetrical. Oh, almost. I do tend to play with this part quite a lot too. I think it's so important to really get the frame set right on here. So I knew tutorials are supposed to be a little bit more like, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, and this is how easy it is. But when I'm actually working, this is actually more of what's happening. It's a lot of eyeballing it, adjusting, little tiny adjustments. Not over adjusting because you don't want to overwork the wire. All right, now this part is pretty straight, but if it's not, because of the step that we're going to have to do next, I'll take my nylon pliers and really kind of straighten these out. And now we do want them side by side. So now that we've created the bend, I'm going to go back in and just adjust it so it's more straight up and down on both sides, so they run completely parallel with one another. And then I don't want too many gaps, so that's where I'm going to come in and really straighten them out, kind of try to push them inward, because we're going to wrap around and we want a nice tight wrap there. Next step, this is optional, is I like to hammer the wire. I do like, even though I'm working with round wire, I do tend to hammer most of it so it's flatter. So again, you don't have to use round wire. You can use any shape of wire you want. If you want to use square, you know, whatever you got is fine. I am going to get my chasing hammer and block and just hammer this down first. So if you have chosen to hammer both sides, you probably have to go back in and just line things back up. Make sure they're flat. And now we will use the half round wire. Oh, let's do like 18 to 20 inches. We'll probably have some left over. So with your half round wire, if you're not familiar with half round, it is half round. It's a round on one side, and then the other side it's flat. So you just have to be careful with this one that you don't get it twisted. And let's pick the best side here. We're going to put the flat side, flat side down. There we go. And then guide it around, guide it around your two wires. So I'm keeping a little tension on it, keeping that flat side down, the round side up. And I'll just start twisting, guiding. And then every few coils, you can either use like a pair of flat pliers or your nylon pliers. And I'll give it a squish. Keep everything tight, or even just compress it by moving it down. And then continue on. So it's important that you kind of do that periodically so that it doesn't get messy, or sometimes you can pull too much and these wires will overlap. So just make sure that they're side by side. Everything looks pretty uniform as you go along. So I'll continue wrapping this, and I guess I'll try to keep count of how many rotations I do. Here we go. All right, I'm going to take a little stopping point here. I lost count, but I'm just going to give you like a measurement of how long I have so far. It's like 3.5 centimeters of rotation. Anyways, it's not too important actually, the number of rotations. Because you should just be able to kind of eyeball it anyways when you're working, and I'll show you how to do the next part and test it and see if it's long enough. You just want to make sure that there's enough so that when you go do your bail, what I'm going to do here, this is the front of my pendant, I'm going to put a little counter bend, so I'm using my flat pliers, placing it across the top and just giving it a little tiny counter bend towards me. And you can see I kind of messed up on one here. I got the wire kind of twisted, so it's got a little bump in it. Not the prettiest thing, but that's okay. And then I'll just start to shape the bail however tall, short you want it to be. Whatever type of chain you're planning on putting through there, you just want to make sure that it's wide enough. All right, so I've shaped the bail. I'm allowing these two to come forward. And actually I had more than enough, so I'm just gonna find a spot where I can trim off that half round wire, preferably on the inside, but it's on the back, so not really gonna see it anyways. Okay, so we'll just get these guys kind of up and out of the way for right now. Let's put our stone in here. Okay, so next you will need some 20 gauge wire. So I've got a piece of 8-inch 20 gauge wire, and we're going to use this wire to secure the bead into the frame. Like so. Now we're going to wrap it, the sides around the frame. You can choose however many rotations you want. I think on this last one I did 3, so I will probably just do the same here. Kind of loop it through. Make sure you're not pulling too hard that you pull the wire through the bead. Just guide it around. I like to use my little pliers to go in and squeeze the wire so it's nice and snug against the frame. Maybe I'll do another one. So I did a couple coils around the frame, and I do have quite a bit left over, which it's always easier for me to work with more wire than a little amount, so kind of overestimated what I would need, which isn't a big deal to me because I use the scraps for other things, but I can understand if you're working with silver wire, you know, you want to be efficient because copper is pretty inexpensive compared to silver or gold. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I ended up doing about 4 wraps around the frame on each side. I'm trimming it on the back side. And I want to leave enough so that I can squish it down. It's almost touching the very inside of the frame. At the very end, I'm going to go through what tools I use also to go around and smooth out all of these parts so that we have no issues with it scratching the person wearing it. Okay, next we're going to work with these 2 pieces here. All right, and I should have enough. These 2 pieces are going to wrap around the wire we just put on. Start to curve them around. And I'll kind of work back and forth between the 2. It seems to help more keeping things symmetrical than working one piece all the way to the end and then trying to do it the same on the other side, because you're going to have to kind of go back and forth to adjust because the wires will push on the stone in different ways, so you have to kind of keep going back and forth just to make little fixes. All right, this tool is like my best friend. These are needle nose, flat nose pliers. They're great. I have been, doing this for a while, so I don't tend to have a ton of scratches on my work. However, doing this particular style of wrapping, I have more than like my weaving projects. So you just have to be careful. You'll find how much you can squeeze or move the pliers on the piece the more you do this without marring the wire. But also, like I said, I'm going to go back at the end, show you some tools to help get out some of those scratches if your piece has any, like this one. See, I've got little tool marks because I had to mess with this part quite a bit. But I have something at the end that will kind of buff those out. It's better. And then on the back, I'm going to trim these 2 pieces that I just curved around. And then just squeeze them in. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way that that looks, and I think we can move on to the next step. So the next thing I'm going to need is 2 separate pieces of 20 gauge wire. So we're going to attach them here and the other one on this side, and it's going to run down and attach to the bottom. So again, you can just eyeball it. You don't need to know these exact measurements because it's going to depend on the size of your piece. So what I'll do is just take my wire, leave some extra so that it's easier to wrap on both sides, and then cut it. So again, sometimes it's better not to have specific measurements because your pendant may not be the same size as mine. And this gives you more freedom, you know, to choose whatever size bead you want, however large or small of a pendant you want. So you can still do this design no matter what. All right, so they're kind of gonna sit like that. And then again, optional, I'm gonna go ahead and hammer both of these. You do not have to, but I'll hammer them off camera and then come right back. All right, now that they're hammered, we'll start attaching this wire. I always feel like this part can be a little tricky. What I'll do is put a little hook, just kind of get it started. And then I kind of latch it on like that. So, because it can be kind of tricky to hold this stuff together, especially when you don't have the wire, the other side of it attached to anything yet. It's just getting the first side going. Yeah, there we go. Rotate it around as many times as you want. But I like to have the wire shaping in, so it's pressing up against that stone. And then depending, so if you wanted to overlap it, you could overlap it if you wanted a little bit more stability and not have that stone kind of push forward on you. I think I might go ahead and overlap mine just a little bit. And then here at the end, we're going to wrap down towards the point. And I did about 2 or 3 around the bottom. Two, I guess. And then we'll do the same thing to the other side. All right, now that both sides are attached, I'm going to start working on this piece right here. This piece is going to bend in half here, come through and around the back side, through the front, and attach to the sides. So again, you'll need 20 gauge wire for this. And let's use a side. I'm just going to cut off. Okay, I'm going to do 11 inches. And before I hammer it, I will fold this in half. Sometimes it's kind of hard to, wants to turn on me. Okay, there. We got it squished. All right, now I'm going to take my hairpin from the back, push it to the front, and then however far up you want it to go, just kind of hold it in place and then push it into place. Hope you can kind of see how I did that. So I'm holding onto it with my thumb. I want to take these. Let's see, these are supposed to come out through this hole right here. So it might be kind of awkward. There we go. Trying to keep these as straight as possible, but I can always, you know, use my nylon pliers to straighten them out some more. Okay, and now these I want to overlap and bend, and I'm gonna, oops, I'm sorry, it's been a few weeks since I've been on camera. I keep going out of the frame. I'm gonna take these across this guy and then attach them somewhere on the side, preferably in the same spot on each side. And before I get tight around the frame, I always double check the work. And actually, before I go any further, I'll try to get this one caught up the same. Anytime you're working and trying to work with symmetry, or like a pair of earrings, for example, you want to kind of work on both at the same time, not complete one side and then complete another side. It's just easier to keep things looking the same if you go back and forth. And then if you have some extra here, you could, you know, do something else with them, make some more wraps, just for today's purpose. I'm going to trim them off to keep the design, you know, fairly simple for us today. Alright, so those are attached. I did get one slightly higher than the other, but it's not too noticeable. Oh, I can kind of move that one up. There we go. That kind of moved my top piece though. Alright, and I believe there's one more part that I added to this, and that's this little guy here at the bottom. So again, another, oh man, dropped my hammer. I dropped the hammer. Boom. Okay, last part, I've got about 5 inches of 20 gauge wire. So we're gonna make this little V shape. So we're gonna bend the wire in half. It's gonna go in this hole on this side to the back. And then we're gonna attach it to the very point of the frame. So this one's fairly easy. So we want to give the wire a little squeeze to get, and then kind of open it back up. All right, now this is where each piece is kind of different, because I took these wires a little bit further down and I overlapped them. I don't have quite as much space as I did on this one. So you just adjust and make it look nice. What are we gonna do here? Okay, I'm liking it, I'm liking it. All right, so put one end through each side Yep. And then kind of hold the front of it in place. Oh, is that gonna work? You know what? Instead, I think this is gonna work better. I am going to tie these around the side of the frame here. But I don't have it quite even, so I'm gonna have to mess with it a little bit. All right, looking better. Okay, yeah, I like that. And then we're gonna take it around the frame. My God, it's really nice outside today. So there's lots of people outside and it's Saturday, so more noise than usual. If you hear kids screaming in the background, they're just over at the pool having a good time. Some of you are in still really cold states and you're growling at me for being in sunny Arizona. Oh, I really like that. That turned out cool. And just to kind of balance this, because there's so many wraps up here, I'm going to wrap maybe a couple more times around with this one. All right, so I've finished wrapping the 3 coils around the bottom. I'm just going to finish this off. By trimming the back. I'm trying to finish this up. It's getting pretty rowdy outside. Their screams will live on in infamy in my YouTube video. Oh my gosh, I kind of want to go outside. All right, that is our pendant. So I think it was a good way to get started on this style. Let me know if you thought so too. Here's another option. If you want to keep going, look at your scraps. What do you have left? Maybe you can use these and start just weaving in more and more wires to make it as dense as you like. Or maybe you want to step it up and go for a thicker gauge wire. Try it out. Just again, remember to take care of your hands. If you're experiencing too much tension, you do need to make sure you're shaking it out. You don't want to get carpal tunnel or anything like that. Take care of those magic hands, people. All right, so next I did say I would show you some tools for finishing, so let me go ahead and grab those. Okay, 2 things that I've been using to finish my pieces. I'll go over these second. So this is paper that I bought. I haven't used all of them, but it's called polish paper. And It's not quite like sandpaper, but they are very coarse, different levels of coarseness for polishing. I've been using this green one, which I think is the most coarse. Let me grab my scissors. Like this. And this is really great if you've just got little tiny marks that you want to get rid of. You can just go over and just sand them out. And of course you could start with this higher grit to get out the deeper marks and then keep moving down in grit size. And some of them, if they're too deep, you may not be able to get them out, but you're gonna probably get a lot of it out. So that has helped quite a bit. It will kind of give your piece a little matte finish as well, if you like that look. Okay, the other option, I also purchased some filing tools. I really like these. I can't remember if they're a 3 or a 5. I don't even really know what that means, coarseness level. I'm gonna just put the links to both of these polishing tools in the description box, so you can look them up on Rio Grande. They're not affiliate links, but you know, if you're interested in getting these tools as well, I will put links to them in the bottom. So I love these filing tools. They come in, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shapes here. So these can be excellent, especially if you've got like little weird angles for your work. This one's like a triangle shaped. Okay, so that's another option, is to really go in. If you've got some deep, deep marks, you could just go in and file it out completely. These tools are going to take off a lot more metal than the paper is. Voila. So I also use these tools to go along the back side. And any part where I've cut the wire, I will just go in and just give it a little file and really flatten out that piece so that it's nice and soft. And it's not going to catch on anything. I won't go totally through that, but you get the idea. Again, those links are going to be down in the description box below. And that finishes our piece. And of course, if you want to learn how to patina your piece, I also have a reference video for that down in the description. And if you are on my Patreon community, which I also have a link for that down below as well, you know where to go for all these links down below. If you are a Patreon, the good news is this week I am going to be giving away this pendant. I'm going to polish it and, well, I'm going to treat it first, patina and polish it. I'll be doing a giveaway for my patrons. So if you are a Patreon of mine, this Friday the 12th, I will be putting everybody's names into a hat and drawing, and one of my patrons will receive this pendant, and I will make sure it's patinaed and polished, and you'll be the lucky winner. So thank you all so much for watching, for engaging with my videos, and for being patrons. I love you guys so much. Bye.